Welcome to the MMA Roadshow with John Morgan. I am John Morgan. This is episode number 6, and we are back out on the road. Finally, after a little bit of time at home in Las Vegas, back out on the road in Adelaide, Australia. UFC Fight Night 65 this weekend. Stipe Miocic, Mark Hunt in the main event, and so we are here for that. My man Cold Coffee is back home in Las Vegas. He is going to be stitching this episode together, and I appreciate that big help doing that. And then he's going to jump on a plane too. He's going to join me in the Philippines next week. He will be in town in Manila for UFC Fight Night 66, which should be a fun one, of course. Uriah Faber, Frankie Edgar there. So a big week on the road. A lot of air miles racking up, that's for sure. First off, let me just thank everybody for listening. Of course, you can download this at the MMARoadshow.com. You can listen to it and subscribe to it on iTunes, where, of course, you can rate us, review us, recommend us, do all those wonderful things. And, of course, you can follow us on Instagram as well, the MMA Roadshow, so you can see a few pictures of everything we're doing along the way if you want to get a sense of what we're getting to see as we describe the stories and take the interviews to you. So I would love to tell you that I'm sitting in a wonderful spot today. Usually I try to pick a nice scenic area, something with a cool breeze. But I'm in my hotel room right now. Now, of course, that has not stopped me from partaking of an adult beverage or two. Right now, I just grabbed what I saw in my refrigerator, which was a Tooheys Extra Dry. A Tooheys? Is that what it says? The clean, crisp taste is the motto here. Now, I'm not extremely comfortable with what it says on the top here. The lid says, "Repay your mouth," which I guess is a marketing slogan. I'm not sure if I really feel that. But hey, listen, it's a cold beer nonetheless. We're gonna have one and talk about the week a little bit. So, listen, long trip out here to Adelaide, no doubt about it, man. It is a long way to Australia. It's been a long trip to here, and it's been a long time since I've been here. And I guess that kind of goes into why I'm sitting in my hotel room instead of someplace nice, which is the internet here is terrible. The Wi-Fi connection is awful, and I'm trying to get some stuff uploaded for the video team, some things that we shot today, and at the media day, and man, I'm telling you, even at the host hotel, it's terrible. So I didn't really get out because it's taken me so long to get all my work filed for these guys, and that's why I'm sitting here. So, man, Australia, I was so looking forward to come checking you out. It had been a while, but I don't remember this problem. I don't know if that's just an Adelaide issue. We're kind of a little bit isolated down here in southern Australia. I'm hearing there's some infrastructure issues out to this area. I think only 30% of people in Australia have cable TV. So, listen, I'm learning. I still love the people. I still love the cold beer. I still love the good food and the steaks and all that. But this internet is killing me, and that's why I'm stuck in my hotel room right now. So, made the trip again 16 and a half hours from Dallas to Sydney. That was a long way. The good thing was at the Sydney airport, I ran into my man Michael Chiesa. And got to spend a few minutes talking with him before we made the couple hours trip to Adelaide. And Michael Chiesa is going to be one of the guests on the show. And I'm telling you right now, you've got to stay tuned and hear him out. If you listen to nothing else, just make sure you listen to Michael Chiesa's final story because he tells an all-time classic that has been kind of known here and there in circles, and not something that he's tried to hide, but nothing that I think he was necessarily trying to advertise to the world right away. And he was kind enough to tell one of the greatest stories that has ever happened on the road. And this happened in Brazil a while back. So I'm telling you, stay tuned for that. It was funny as well when we were at the Sydney airport waiting to get on the final flight to Adelaide. Chiesa gets a phone call. Now, he doesn't actually have international data, so he's not even really sure how the heck this phone call got through. He doesn't have an international plan, so his phone actually shouldn't have worked. But it did, and he looks down, we're sitting there talking, and he pulls the phone out of his pocket, and it's Cody McKenzie on the other line, of all people. And unfortunately, he couldn't take the call. He actually tried to answer, and it didn't go through. But I would have liked to know what Cody McKenzie had to say. The always interesting Cody McKenzie, who Mike said is actually getting his stuff together right now. I guess Cody's kind of getting his life back in line, which is good to hear. I know he had kind of ran off the rails a little bit there for a while. So sounds like Cody's doing good. I would have been interested to know what he had to say. Other than the fight this week, again, the big fight on this, I won't say it's a one fight card. I mean, definitely the most attention, of course, is being given to the main event. There are a couple other fights that I'm actually really interested in along the way. And I think some fighters in particular, some matchups, that sort of thing that look fun. But the most attention, of course, is being given to the main event with Stipe Miocic and Mark Hunt. Um, Not a ton of media here, at least so far. Maybe things will change on Fight Night. Again, we are a little bit isolated, so this isn't a huge city. I think 1.1 million people is the metro area in Adelaide. So just not a ton of media outlets here to begin with, but it doesn't seem like a lot of people traveled for it. So we'll see how things turn out. Still, from what I understand, they're expecting, a pretty packed house on Sunday morning, not Saturday night. Obviously, back in North America, you guys are going to get to watch this thing on Saturday night. Here in Australia, it will be Sunday morning. I believe the first fight is 9:15 a.m. local time. So kind of fun, a unique experience to get up and do it in the morning. We've done it a couple times in the past in Australia and Tokyo. It's actually kind of fun attending live and then kind of being done. Not being a super late night show, but getting to watch it in the morning and then be able to go have lunch afterwards and that sort of thing. So the Australians, of course, this is the time that fight cards normally air in Australia, so they're used to getting up on Sunday mornings and watching UFC. So it's nothing new for them. So it will be interesting. But I say all that just to say there hasn't been a ton of media, there hasn't been a ton of attention, it hasn't been a big buzz around the hotel and around the media events. If anything, I think a lot of the discussion has been around the Reebok deal, and certainly the figures that came out. Finally, that everybody's been waiting for, the Reebok deal, have been a big point of discussion among everybody here. And won't necessarily get into all that. I think the general consensus I'm getting from talking to everybody, and we asked everybody on camera as well, so we'll have a video about that and getting people's feedback. But I think the general consensus was, for the most part, I think people thought the money was going to be more. I think obviously they, who doesn't want to make as much money as possible? I think they wanted to be more, but the big thing is that it's just going to take managers getting creative and companies getting creative, to be honest with you, and figuring out the best way for everybody to do this. But I say all that again because I said I'm not going to get into all that here. You've read plenty of news and seen us talking about it on the website. But it's funny because one of Hatsuhiyoki's team um, came into the media room the other day with, like, I think what he said was 60 pounds of gear. It's t-shirts and banners and fight shorts and things that were being put together. Um, you know, and since he was flying out here, I guess, I don't know whether it was Tough Prince or somebody else, asked him if they could load him up and have him deliver it, and he did. And it sounds like he did it pretty willingly, but it seems like by the time he got to Australia, he was just about done carrying that pack and wasn't too excited to be handling all that stuff that had nothing to do with his client. So that's something that isn't going to happen anymore. The Reebok deal will certainly have all that stuff addressed. The sponsor banners won't be a problem at all anymore. Those won't exist anymore. And then, of course, the USC themselves and the equipment manager will handle all the gear, and you won't have guys having to track that stuff around anymore and get things approved at the last minute. So, certainly a plus, not the not the plus that I think most people care about. I think most people care about the pay that's involved in it. But it's interesting because I was told that a good friend of the show, Alex Davis, actually saved the day in Montreal at UFC 186 when I guess a lot of the stuff that was being shipped in, the fight banners and everything else, got stuck in customs. And the day before the weigh-ins, Alex Davis had to drive out an hour and a half away from from the arena and go get all the stuff, or it wasn't going to be there. So I'll have to ask him about that next time I see him. I couldn't. Didn't get a chance to follow up with them, but I heard that from some pretty reliable sources. So at least there's one thing that isn't going to happen. But other than that, it's been kind of a fun week here. As Michael Chiesa was a guest fighter, Alistair Overeem, Jessica Eye, both guest fighters as well. Spoke to all three of them, and you'll hear those interviews right here in just a moment. Alistair's been in a fantastic mood. Actually, attended a cooking event with them. There was a community service event, and a very very cool project. Where basically this organization takes food from restaurants and things that they might not want any more food that would spoil, chicken and produce and things that may not be quite good enough for them anymore, I guess, or what have you. They may be wasted, and then they repurpose this and cook it and teach people how to cook and get this stuff cooked and deliver it to basically charitable organizations. And so the guys were brought in, and girl, I should say, with Jessica as well, and they took part in this cooking demonstration. And Alistair Overeem has never been in a kitchen in his life. That's pretty much what I gathered from the experience. And but the funny thing is he was joking with himself and joking with everybody around and having a good time, and really just seems to have turned over a new leaf. But for the better part of say 45 minutes, as everybody else in the kitchen was cooking, he literally cut onions for 45 minutes straight, and that's all he could do, and didn't even do a particularly good job of cutting onions. I don't mind saying. Uh, Only because he's not sitting here right now. But no, Alistair was joking and just seems to be in a good mood. And I think that'll come through in the interview as well. But guy just seems to really, used to hate talking to media and admitted so as much, and now says, "Look, man, I'm kind of over it, and I'm enjoying it." So we'll hear those interviews later on. Media day was great. No huge real stories. I mean, there weren't any pushes or shoves or any real trash talking going on. I will say that Sean O'Connell stole the media day for me. This guy is extremely intelligent, extremely articulate. If you haven't heard a lot of interviews, and I get it, there's a lot of fighters, man. I think there's almost 600 fighters on the roster. It's hard to keep up with everybody, but Sean O'Connell is worth checking out. Some of his, if you can find some video, we'll hopefully have some video on MMA Junkie, and he's actually involved in some of the other videos that we have, some of our topical videos that you're going to see coming out, where we do each week and ask guys, opinions. So again, I said we ask people about the Reebok deal. We ask them about, what it means to be judged as a professional athlete when you get in trouble outside the cage, like a Floyd Mayweather, like a John Jones. Of course, we did the predictions on the main event, but you got to listen to Sean O'Connell's answers, and a very, very fun guy to talk to. And it's kind of hard not to be a fan once you listen to him talk, man. The guy is really fun to talk to, and I know he's not one of the biggest superstars in the sport, but he's got a great attitude, and he's got a lot of really educated opinions on things that's fun to listen to. So seek out some of that. Hit him up on Twitter if you can, and tell him I told you to, because he's a good dude to talk to, and I think he probably gets overlooked quite a bit. So anyway, let's get to the interviews. Let's get to some of the conversations we had this week, because there's 4 of them, and I want you to enjoy them and not take up too much of your time, especially since I'm sitting here in my hotel room and not able to describe a beautiful scene. I mean, the room itself is fine, and the cold beer is, well, it's cold. It's not the greatest cold beer I've ever had, but it's cold. So anyway, let's start out with Tom Wright, managing director, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. The man is spread out. He's gives us a little bit of updates on the area down here. It sounds like they're ready to announce another Australian event, visiting another state down here. It also, of course, they're coming back in November. This was the Melbourne event, and it's still going to happen, and it's going to be a pay-per-view. I know they want to have a title fight on it. They want to have 2 title fights if they can. But if you remember, this was the stadium event when it was first announced. I'm getting the feeling it's not going to be a stadium event anymore. And he addresses it briefly. I think they're holding out hope. And he said, look, we've got a stadium reserved, and we've got an arena reserved. But we just don't know who we're going to have, and it's tough to say. But sounds to me like, unfortunately, that Melbourne event's not going to be in a big stadium anymore. I was kind of looking forward to seeing that. But it's still going to be a pay-per-view, which they haven't had a pay-per-view in Australia for quite some time, and they're going to try to put together good cards. So you'll hear the latest on Australia, and including some of the legal battles they're having. Still having some legalization issues in Australia, and he'll give you the update there. And then he's also going to talk, of course, Canada. I know the Canadian fans feel a little bit overlooked sometimes. He promises and assures that, listen, man, they still remain very, very committed to Canada, and even very committed to Montreal, even after, the pain in the butt, I guess you could say, that was UFC 186. All the things that got changed there, and of course, attendance wasn't fantastic, and the card took some hits, but he says they still remain committed to it. So we'll let you tell him himself. Again, the MMA Roadshow. Appreciate you listening. Stay tuned and hear a little bit from Tom Wright. All right, well, I'm here with Mr. Tom Wright. I had to write it down just to make sure I get it, because it's always so long. Managing Director for UFC operations in Canada, Australia, and New Zealand.
Close enough.
Close enough. Well, let's start out first. I mean, we're here in Adelaide, Australia, a new market for the UFC. Obviously, the city itself is a new market. A little bit smaller town, a little bit outside, kind of where you've been visiting. How did we end up here in Adelaide?
It's pretty easy when you think of what the mandate's been, and the mandate here has been no different than it was when we opened up the office in Canada 5 years ago, which was to take our sport to as many different parts of the country as possible. And in Canada, that meant going outside of Quebec, where back this time 5 years ago we'd only held events in Quebec, and we've now been in 7 different cities and 6 different provinces, and we're about to even add to that. So, here it was the same way. When we started taking over responsibilities down here, we'd only been to Sydney, we'd only been to New South Wales, and now we've been to Queensland with 2 events in Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and South Australia will be our 3rd state this Sunday. And this fall in November will be in our 4th state, and the country's only got 6 states, so
Doing pretty well.
there's only a couple left to battle, and one is going to be a battle for sure. That's Western Australia, because they have the same philosophy as Victoria used to have, as it relates to allowing our sport to be conducted in an octagon as opposed to a boxing ring.
Well, since you brought it up, let's start. Melbourne was the first big hurdle that you had to get through. It sounds like it's done there now. Everything's ready to go, correct?
Absolutely, everything's ready to go. The commission is in place. The rules and regs are there, and actually, it really wasn't that difficult an administrative or a legislative act to happen. All it required was the existing sport minister to write a letter to the Combat Sport Commission to overturn something. But the previous government, and I met with 2 of the sport ministers, they just refused to write that letter. And so we supported and gave a lot of not a lot of attention to, but we did a lot of education with the labor minister, which was at the time was in the shadow government, and were able to work with him and the labor government to really change their perspective on the sport and understand that the octagon is all about health and safety, and it's all about providing a level playing field, and a boxing ring is, as it describes,
More dangerous.
It's for boxing,
Yeah.
and it's not for mixed martial arts. And so, they were enlightened and saw that, and they also saw the economic benefit that was going to other states. I mean, literally, we made the decision to come to Adelaide, long before the ban was overturned in Victoria, and sort of it sends a bit of a message to the city. Here we're going to the last time we were down in Australia was in Sydney.
Right.
The state to the east of Victoria, and now we're in SA, the state to the west of Victoria, and sandwiched in between is the self-proclaimed ultimate sports city called Melbourne. So, now we've been able to in this coming November on the 15th, we'll be able to turn that page in the book as well.
Tell us about that. It's I know everything's still being planned. It sounds like things are fluid. Certainly bringing a pay-per-view back to Australia is awesome. Hasn't been done in a long time. But I have noticed in reading press releases and things like that, in the beginning it was, we're coming to a stadium, we're doing a stadium. In subsequent press releases, I haven't necessarily seen the word stadium in there. So is there a possibility that things are changing, and what are you hoping to do in November?
Well, first and foremost, we're going to bring a major global pay-per-view event to this country and to the city of Melbourne. And we haven't been, last time I think was UFC 110, I'm going to say.
Right.
And that was, a long time ago. That was probably 5 years ago.
Yep.
And so it's been a while. And when you bring a pay-per-view to any market, you're guaranteed at least 1, maybe 2 championships, which is really important. And you've always heard me say that you've got one chance to make a first impression.
Right.
And Victoria is a big state. The city of Melbourne is a global city, and it really is in many ways the sporting capital of certainly of Australia. And so we really wanted to bring a big event. Having said that, it's, and you know this better than anybody, John, we don't know what kind of card's going to be available. We
Sure.
don't know whether it's going to, be, heavyweights and maybe Ronda, or it could be, another championship.
Right.
And so, depending on the card, I think it's prudent planning on our part to have some flexibility.
Sure.
Because you don't know who's going to be available. You don't know who's going to be, ready. You don't know who's going to be potentially hurt. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Do you know a date when you have to make a decision by that? Is there like
No, absolutely. We know. We absolutely know. But, we've got Etihad Stadium held, and we've got Rod Laver Arena held.
So you got options.
We've got options.
Very smart. Well, I'm looking forward to that one. In the meantime, you touched on a little bit of a battle that you have. Western Australia, which would be Perth, would be the city that would probably host it.
Yes.
It sounds like you're saying that you're digging in there a little bit more. It's going to be tougher. It's not going to be as simple as getting a letter written.
Well, it probably is as simple as getting a letter written, but you have to have the will to write the letter, and the current government in WA is a Liberal National Coalition government, and they adopted the Victorian government's policy before an election back in 2013, and they decided to make it an election commitment. And so, and again, the premier in WA is a gentleman by the name of Colin Barnett, and he had made what I believe is the incorrect factual assumption that street violence is inextricably linked to professional mixed martial arts. And as you well know, it's not. There's no intrinsic, there's no empirical evidence to support that. But and in the end, when he was pressed, and he got pressed many times by myself and other journalists, in the end, he just basically said, "Listen, you know what? I just don't like the look." So he was making a very emotional, subjective decision based on his reading of the tea leaves from his electorate, and so that's kind of stuff happens in government. So, but he got in, and good for him. I mean, he got elected, and so I suspect things won't change in WA until such a time as maybe we're able to have some inroads with the current government, or there's a government change. Now, we're not waiting just for the next election. There's a new sport minister that I'm looking forward to meeting next time I go to Perth. We actually have some individuals coming from WA, government individuals who are coming in here on their own dime, on their own nickel to see the event, to understand the sport better. And I really salute them for doing that, because oftentimes I'll sit down with people in government and they'll throw out their perspective on the sport, and I'll ask them, "Well, have you ever been to an event?" And they'll say, "No." Have you ever spoken to an athlete? No. Have you ever seen them training? Have you ever even watched it? No. And they answer, no. But they have this incredibly entrenched position. So, and interestingly enough, when we were able to turn the corner in Victoria, it was when the shadow minister came to the Gold Coast and then subsequently came to Brisbane and actually, saw the event and saw how we ran it and saw visible evidence of why there is an octagon. And it's, designed obviously to protect the health and safety of the athletes and to provide a level playing field. And there were certain points in that fight where somebody was rushed and pushed into the side of the octagon
And could have gone tumbling out of the ropes.
Well, and we had provided like maybe 15 to 20 very, very graphic examples of athletes flying over, between, and under the ropes, falling on the concrete floor, getting knocked out, and I even brought that up in WA to show you the kind of conversations we had, and I explained this to then the head of the sports administration in WA, and his comment was, "Are you ready for this?" His comment was, "If you're so concerned about the health and safety of the sport and them falling out of the octagon and hurting, or the ring and hurting themselves, then why don't you just put a bunch of sand around and so they won't hurt themselves when they fall?" I couldn't make that up. I couldn't make that up.
That is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I'm sorry to make fun of an elected official, but that seems ridiculous.
Yeah, and the trouble is, he wasn't an elected official. He was actually a member of the sport WA.
Right.
And prior to that, he had sent the government had sent two commissioners to Brisbane. I might have been I can't remember. It was either the Gold Coast or Brisbane, to actually witness the event and learn from the event. And they came back and recommended that the octagon ban should be lifted. And guess what?
Crazy. Is there anything the people of Western Australia can do? I mean, is this really just a political thing that's got to get worked out? I mean, can people, if there is a grassroots campaign, a grassroots effort, I mean, is there anything that people can do to try to help it along?
Well, I think that they're continuing to do that. It's making sure that they continue the argument based on fact and demonstrate what's happening in other jurisdictions around the world. And frankly, I think the what's happened in Victoria will have a strong bearing, because in many ways WA was following Victoria's lead, and they were similar governments, and not necessarily when you go state to state are the governments, they may have the same name, but doesn't mean they have all the same
Right.
ideology. And but I think that they were led along that route and said, well, if it works for Victoria, if it's good for Victoria, why isn't it good for WA? And so, now that things have changed here, and I hope, as we're in this country more often with consistent and professionally run events, that people are going to understand that this is a sport that is conducted by two world-class professionally trained athletes that are there to determine who's the superior athlete, and
Right.
and that's what it is. It's pure sport.
It is. Classify, I guess, the market as a whole. And it sounds like even though you're having to go through these battles and having to do a lot of work here, it sounds like you're still pretty bullish on the market. That you think Australia is still a great home for the UFC.
Absolutely. On a per capita basis, it's one of the largest, if that, and sometimes the largest, pay-per-view buyer performer in the world.
Wow.
And you got to remember, like, so the U.S. has got 340 million odd people. Canada's got 35 odd million people. There's only 21 here.
Right.
And so, but to borrow a line from boxing, I mean, MMA punches above its weight
Right.
here, and it does so in New Zealand as well. But we still have some challenges and some issues that are all about trying to continue to grow and develop the sport, because you got to remember it's still young, and while globally we're just a teenager, here in New Zealand and Australia, I'd say we're 3 to 5 years behind on the development of the sport in other parts of particularly North America.
Sure.
And there's some very, very specific reasons for that.
I can't let you go without talking about Canada a little bit.
Sure, man.
Obviously, UFC 186 was not your fault. Take a pass. I mean, things that I think the card fell apart for a lot of various reasons, but was it disheartening at all to have to deal with all those issues with one particular card?
Well, you know what? You got to roll with the punches again to use the boxing metaphor. But the truth of the matter is that our responsibility is to manage the things that we can control, and there's certain things that we can't control, and we're trying to do a better job in being able to control those things. As you've been following our sport, and you know what we're doing in terms of managing fighter injuries and educating more and helping them with the training, all the kinds of investments that you've heard us that we're making. But these things happen, and you know what? I take responsibility for it, because ultimately I am the guy that's responsible for the business in Canada, and people were coming to me and say, well, does this mean that you're not happy with Montreal? Listen, we've been to Montreal more times than any other city other than Las Vegas and Atlantic City, and we'll be back. Absolutely, we'll be back. And you were there. The fights were terrific,
Right.
and I think the fans that were there, completely got their money's worth.
Right.
And oftentimes, and I say this to so many people, oftentimes and what you're going to find down here, it's a very different crowd than you find in Las Vegas, where the stadium is kind of empty until the main events are the
I hate to
the
say
main
it.
card.
I live in Vegas, but it's the worst crowds.
But I tell you, there'll be 80-90% of the joint will be full before
At 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, you watch. It'll be like that.
Yeah.
And it was like that it's like that in Halifax.
Right.
And so and some of the best fights are the ones that are in the prelims. We also know that as well. So, what happened in Montreal was it happened. And as Dana would say, shit happens. And so, you manage it.
I guess, and you guys were going through a TV deals transition, all that. It just, obviously as a journalist and being online and monitoring social media, and I'm sure you do the same, the Canadian fans, it just felt like for a while they felt like they were being shunned or not getting the proper treatment. But, obviously you still care about the market. It's your area. It was just, do we just chalk it up to it was kind of a rough little area and a promise we'll be back, promise we're reinvesting, or how would you classify it all?
Well, I would classify it this way: that we still remain 100% committed to the country. In the first half so far this year, our pay-per-view buys are probably close to 80 to 90% higher than last year. They're not quite back to 2013 levels when we had two George St. Pierre fights, but listen, George St. Pierre, he's the number one guy, and in the world, let alone in Canada. So it takes a while to to build up those stars again, and we're working on that. I mean, Rory is now fighting for a championship for the first time, and I think it's one of those things where you can compare to other sports. Rory has been fighting now since he was like 15, like for
Right.
10 years. And he's been 10 years, and his last 4, 5, 6, 7 fights have been all against the top guys. And now he's finally getting his chance. The number one pick in the NHL draft was Connor McDavid. As soon as he skates for his first game against the Edmonton Oilers, he's going to be a star.
Right.
It takes 10 years to develop a star.
Very true.
Unless you're somebody like a Connor McDavid or Connor McGregor, who's just coming along like that. The vast majority, it takes time because you're not going to be provided with that opportunity to fight for a championship like that.
Yeah.
So, I take a look at the investment we made this time last year on the Ultimate Fighter Nations, Canada versus Australia. We've got 5 or 6 fighters that are now under UFC contracts thanks to that show. In Canada, we've got 4 or 5 fighters from Australia who are now signed with the UFC thanks to that investment. And we make those investments because you've got to do that. We're going to be in probably our 7th different province this summer. We're close to announcing where we're going to be going. We're going to continue to take our sport into new cities and into new parts of the country. And yes, we'll be back in Montreal because we know it's a great town. We'll be all across the country. We're going to continue to do that.
No doubt. You guys just wrapped up international meetings, right? You had all the directors there. It's funny because, I remember you coming aboard, and I remember you starting. You're not the new guy anymore, right? You're a veteran.
Yeah, no, I'm the long beard. I'm the guy with the real gray hair, and I really do have gray hair. 5 years.
That's
5
great.
years is a long time. It's interesting when you think of the real life of the UFC from 2001 when Frank and Lorenzo and Dana bought the company. I've now actually been here for more than a third of its existence.
Yeah.
And if you'd asked me 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, if I had been doing this, John, I would have said, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
So it's been fun. It's been
What's
good
the
to learn.
feel as you sit in those meetings? Because I'm fortunate enough that I do get to travel the world and see the different markets, and I hear some of the journalists back in the States, especially North America. I'm sure you see in Canada where people say, "Oh, the growth of MMA is stalling, it's stagnating," and I say, well, if you want to make that argument in North America, I might listen to it. It's not on that huge upward trend, but I just see all these opportunities in all these international markets. I feel like there's still a lot of opportunity for growth, that it's not stagnating at all, that really it's just beginning in a lot of places.
No, absolutely. And from an international team's perspective, we actually think that in short order, maybe in 5 years, we'll do actually more business outside of the United States than we will in the United States.
Absolutely.
And but John, there's also some simple math. When you're starting at a low base, you can have pretty exponential growth, because if you're starting at 10 and you go to 20, holy, you just doubled. But if you're at 100 and you go to 115, you only grew by 15%. So,
Right.
God, the growth isn't that big. It's simple math when you're also a young sport and a young business, and it's some of the growth is just indefensible. You just can't continue to grow at that rate.
Right.
And so it's all about managing expectations and managing how we grow. But I mean, there's some massive countries, there's some massive markets where we're just literally we've just tipped our toe into the water, and it's going to take time. I compare ourselves to the big 4, U.S. sports, North American sports, hockey, baseball, football, basketball. They're all over 100 years.
Right.
All over 100 years. And I mean, you remember my background. I used to be with the Canadian Football League. I can tell you, I never had to go to Ottawa and argue with parliamentarians about whether football was legal. We had to change the criminal code. So
Right.
when you're doing those kinds of things, it takes time to grow. It takes time to build, and you have to have patience. You have to have a long-term vision, and I think we do.
No doubt. Well, you spent a lot of time, and I appreciate it. I know you're a busy man, but Sunday morning here in Adelaide, Saturday night for our friends back home in North America, but Sunday morning, Mark Hunt versus Stipe Miocic. Excited for that one, I imagine. I mean, 2 heavyweights getting in there. Obviously, Mark Hunt down in this part of the world is going to be fun, but I think anytime you get 2 heavyweights that can hit the way those guys do, it's kind of fun just to be there. You get that chill in the air.
It's going to be fun, and I think everybody that has a chance to be there live is just. And what's cool about that is that first time in a market, first time here in SA, and here first time in Adelaide, there just is nothing like watching our event live. and we've been able to structure it so that the people back in North America, can watch it on Fight Pass, which is great.
Awesome. Tom, thanks for your time.
My pleasure, mate.
Appreciate it. Well, that was Tom Wright, managing director again of Canada, Australia, New Zealand. The man has got a big geographical market, a lot of ocean in between it all, but a couple of big key markets. Canada and Australia both very passionate about MMA, and of course, Canada's had a little bit of struggles lately. But if you listen to Tom Wright, he says they're committed to it and they're going to make it happen. And of course, Australia really still being cultivated, and as he said, it's pound for pound. One of the best countries, best performing countries, and most interested in the sport in the entire world. So that's a little bit about what's going on there. So now with the executive talk in the books, let's get into some of the fighters. Again, later on, Michael Chiesa, stay tuned. Just a great conversation. I really like Mike Chiesa. He is, him and I have gotten to know each other over the years. He's a guest fighter that loves traveling the world and accepts an invitation from the UFC just about any time they give it to him. And he's got some big things coming up. But more than anything, he's got a fantastic story that you absolutely must hear. But now let's get to Alistair Overeem. Had a chance to sit down with the Reem or the Demolition Man. I prefer the Demolition Man, as I made it very clear to him. I'm not a big fan of the Reem. I don't know how you guys feel about that one, but I don't know. Just never suited me much. But Alistair, a guy that for the longest, I'll be honest, I always just thought he hated talking to the media. Cocky, arrogant, maybe. Can you use those words without being too offensive? Just seemed like he had better things to do than talk to the media. And not that it's the most exciting thing to talk to us anyway, but it just seemed like it was the least favorite part of his job and couldn't stand it and basically couldn't stand us. But now seems to be having a little bit more fun with it. And we talked to him about the future and the fight that he wants. Of course, there's been a little going back and forth with him and Junior Dos Santos, so we'll get his take on that. And also, he kind of previews next week in the Philippines a little bit. Alistair Overeem has been spending some time in Asia and in this part of the world, and he tells us a little bit about what to expect next week in Manila, which I'm pretty pumped about. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get into it with Alistair Overeem. All right, well, I am here with I like the Demolition Man. I know the Reem is out there, but I like the Demolition Man. But I'm here with Alistair Overeem.
I like the Demolition Man too, and I have people remind me of it. I hear it now and then. So we can go back to the Demolition Man, especially for you.
I appreciate that. That's good to know, man. Well, you've been busy. We're here in Adelaide, Australia right now. You're a guest fighter this week, but you've been making travels. You've been to Thailand, I believe the Philippines as well. What's it been like for you?
It's been very busy, but that's the way I like it. For me, it's good to travel. I have worldwide fans, and for me to stay in one place, never has really worked out. For me to be a little bit on the move, on the go, has always been good. Remember previously, I fought many times in Japan. Most of my career was there, so we would train in Thailand and train actually all over Europe. Now it's shifted. Now I'm fighting mostly in the States. But still, for me to travel is nice. I tend to miss those countries too. And then Philippines was new on the map. I had not been there previous, but it was a very nice experience, very warm people, big welcome, and they're crazy about the UFC out there.
So I was going to ask, because I'm actually going to the Philippines on Monday for the event next week. I've never been there before. What can we expect? We keep hearing that they can't wait for the UFC. Is that what you saw?
Well, those fans are very enthusiastic and very energetic. That's something that I've experienced. But I've not even been to an event. I was just there doing appearances. I wasn't there in this huge shopping mall, and the crowd was going. And so I can only imagine what it's going to be like next week. And I'll probably also be there.
Are you going to go back over?
Yeah, I'm going to fly in just for the event, just for the day. So looking forward.
Very cool. So are you staying over here in Asia for a while, or are you heading back after this?
Okay, so I have some appearances lined up here in Australia,
Yeah.
in Melbourne and Sydney. And then we're going to do the UFC Philippines, a little bit back and forth. And then after that, I'll probably head back to the States. First, I think I'm going to go to Holland, see my little girl.
Nice.
and then back to the States.
Very cool. Are you training while you're here? I mean, I know you're doing a lot of appearances and seminars. Are you still staying in shape, or is it kind of vacation? What is it?
No, I always kind of stay in shape. You have to at this level. I'm also waiting next word of my next fight, which could also be at any moment. I mean, could be today, could be in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, I stay in shape for that, and whenever that next date is set, then we're gonna adjust the plans and go from there.
I want to go back to your last fight in Dallas. I thought it was one of your most technical performances. I thought it was a smart fight. I thought you stuck to your game plan real well, showed that the cardio isn't an issue. I thought you had a lot of good things. But, I remember Dana being a little bit critical at the press conference, and I thought, man, I'm not sure what he's talking about. What do you think? When you go back and you've reviewed it and you've let it soak in, what do you think about that performance?
Well, what I think of that whole fight is Reinaldson is tough. I mean, people can't blame me. People cannot say I didn't try to knock him out. And, I severely damaged him. In the process, I broke his ribs, destroyed his leg. I mean, he took like 6, 7, 8 shots, direct hits to the head and the body, which are knockout shots at itself. What else? He broke his hand somewhere in the fight, I think in the second round. So people cannot blame me that I didn't try.
Yeah.
They got to blame him. He's just a guy made of granite, and you got to deal with it.
That's funny. You mentioned that your next fight should be coming up. I mean, it's about that time. Junior Dos Santos fight's been talked about a lot. I think he's come out and said why he's hurt. I think he doesn't want to fight till later in the year. I think you want to fight pretty soon. What's your thought? I mean, I think he said yesterday, earlier in the week, that hey, Alistair only calls me out when I'm hurt. What's the deal?
I didn't know he was hurt actually. So this is the first time I'm hearing this. So what is his problem?
I guess he's healing up from some old wounds, and I don't know the exact nature of the injuries, but I guess he's saying that he doesn't want to be ready until September, October, sometime around then. So wouldn't work out with your game plan, I guess.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I mean, I didn't know he was injured, and for me, we're just I'm here. I've been very busy. I don't know what's going on. I've not spoken to management or UFC about it. I was actually expecting a call any moment. Okay, this is going to be your date, and you're fighting Junior. I'm ready for it, and if it needs to be a little bit later, I mean, I need to talk to everybody about it because I don't know what's up. But maybe we'll wait, maybe we won't. Depends a little bit on the availability of other opponents as well.
I was going to say the thing is, like, I see if it's not him, I see Josh Barnett, but I don't even know what he's up to these days, and that's a fight that's weird. I mean, you guys' careers have kind of crossed paths all the way, so that seems to be a fight that makes sense. But other than that, I'm having a hard time because it just seems like everybody's matched up right now. So that's the biggest thing right now, right? There's really just not a lot of fights that seem to make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and again, I've been busy, so I'm not really on the strategic level. Okay, who's there, who's not? Josh Barnett is a huge name from Japan. That's something that we share. I don't know. I don't know is a stupid answer, but I cannot give you more at this point.
The Junior Dos Santos fight has been talked about for a long time. Is it exciting for you just because of his style, or is it like I'm getting tired of hearing this guy's name? Why is that the fight that you want?
Well, it sounds logical to me. I am a fighter. I still have 5 years. I want to go up, and he is the number one guy out there, because you have the interim champ Verdum, and you have the champion Kane. So he's right underneath there, and I want to go up. I want to fight for the title. So you want to look up. You don't want to look down. The other thing is that the junior fight has been spoken about so many times. Everybody wants to see that fight. That fight is going to happen. So I'm thinking, okay, why not now?
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have anybody lined up. I didn't have anybody lined up. I mean, he was ranked a little bit higher. And then the thing is, like, he's zigzagging a little bit, and I don't want to step on his toes too much, if you know what I mean. But he's coming, he's going. He's doing what is that thing? The forward, the backward.
Right.
Then he wants to fight me, then he doesn't. I don't know. Again, a stupid answer, but I don't have.
It's the truth, right? It's not stupid if it's the truth. You've got a nice 2-fight winning streak now. You talked about your ranking moving up. You had some tough times, 1-3 stretch. What was it like?
Story of my life. Some tough times. No, tough times is part of life.
Yeah.
Everybody who. I'm 35. I'm actually turning 35.
I was going to ask you got a birthday coming
next
up
week, and everybody who's around that age or older. I don't know how old you are.
I'm 37 actually.
37. Well, look at this. I mean, that's life, right? You have periods that everything is going great, and then you have periods that everything sucks. You just got to keep going, stay positive, and if you have that attitude and you're willing to work hard, you are going to do fine.
Yeah. I just always wondered, you were such a confident guy and you came in with a lot of swagger, and then to have to deal with those and hear all the critics and the people doubting you. And I just wondered if that ever bothered you, or if you don't even pay attention to it.
Well, that is the one thing that I love about my character, about myself. I just focus on me, and I don't give a damn.
Yep.
Because that is what I can do. I can't, and I have to admit that, the whole media thing in the U.S. is, it's everything is get exploded. Can be used good, can be used bad. I maybe underestimated that a little bit. But, I just focus on me.
I always wondered if you hated doing media. Like in the very beginning, I feel like you've gotten comfortable lately, but I feel like in the beginning, especially when you came to the UFC, like you just didn't want to do it at all. Like, did you not want to talk to us at all?
No, but it's also in Holland we have like a little bit more in Europe, I can say, and then in, for example, North Europe, Eastern Europe, everybody's a little bit different. But in general, in Europe, we're a little bit closed. I mean, it's more like we have enough friends.
Right.
I mean, I don't know you. I can get to know you.
Right.
I'm open for that, but I'm not. I mean, we're not friends, so why would I? And I guess I became a little bit more American, more open, more, more accessible. Just more easy to talk. More, I don't care. Just and I had to, because I now live in Miami, and I remember sitting on my couch. Okay, now what am I gonna do? Because you got to open yourself up. You got to meet new people. You gotta get out there. And because in Holland, everyone's there. You already knew everybody. Your family's there. It's kind of like safe. And very sporadically you would meet somebody. Oh, that one was cool, and you slowly go. But when you're in US, you're at zero, reset. So you got to do everything again. And you need to be positive. You need to be open for that. So that's what we've been doing.
That's awesome. Break down this main event we got. We got a main event in your division. Mark Hunt, Stipe Miocic this week. Obviously, I know you're familiar with Mark Hunt. I don't know if you've had a chance to follow a lot of Stipe's fights, but technically, what do you see when you see this fight?
It's going to be a nice fight. I mean, these guys are both big guys. It all depends on that takedown. Can Stipe get it or can he not get it?
Yep.
Mark Hunt is expecting it, of course.
Everybody wants to take Mark Hunt down, right?
Yeah. So can he get it or can he not get it? And if he can't get it, he's got a problem. Like a 275-pound problem coming towards you slowly with those hard hands. And if you can take him down, then even then it's not even going to be an easy fight. So, I'm a little bit of Mark Hunt fan. I just like his whole character, persona, energy thing. So I'm going for Mark Hunt. But he's also coming at age, by the way.
Yeah.
And he's 40 years now, I think.
Yeah.
49, 40, 41.
Yeah.
So you don't know how that's going to affect him. So it's hard to say. I don't know.
I think everybody is like, look, Stipe's, the younger, faster, but how can you not be a Mark Hunt fan? I mean, who that watches MMA isn't a Mark Hunt fan and wouldn't like to see Mark Hunt win?
But still, Mark Hunt is extremely strong and tough, and you got to deal with that. His whole body type thing, he's unique. And you can't just be like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to do this, I'm going to do that. No, you got to respect his abilities. And, again, it's going to be curious to see how the age factor plays in. Because Stipe is more my age, I believe, 34, 35. So he's like more in his prime. And, Mark Hunt, I don't know.
Interesting.
He's been fighting a long time. So
it's going to be interesting to see. You mentioned your birthday, like I said, turning 35 next week.
17.
Not that 35 is old by any stretch of the imagination, coming from the 37-year-old. But of course, MMA is not a game that you can do forever.
The end is coming in sight.
Is it? Are you starting to think about it?
Nah, but I'm realistic, and you don't want to be one of those fighters that is injured and this and that and keeps losing. So the end is coming in sight, and I have to say that everything is still going. I still feel very good. I'm training very well. I still grow as a fighter. But you have to also be realistic, and that is, I have a couple years more left in me to fight at this level, because UFC is a high level, and it's all about constantly evolving and changing. How many years? I don't know. 3 years, maybe 5, maybe 6. but the end is in sight, and that's a little bit like I've been training now for. I'm turning 35. I started when I was 14, so 21 years of training and 18 years of competing. So
Huh.
that's what I'm. I'm not even halfway. I'm like almost there.
Do you still love it? Is it just a job for you?
No, I like it. I like it a lot. Everything around it, traveling, meeting people. Evolving as a fighter, changing, trying new things, because everything changes all the time. Your training methods, your creativity, just gets more.
How about the show itself? I remember in Dallas, you kind of stepping in the cage and acknowledging the crowd, and I mean, do you still get pumped up to be in the middle? All those fans and the lights, and they're there to see you.
Yeah, definitely. Every fighter has that, those goosebump moments before you go out there, and I still have it.
Where would the UFC title rank for you? I mean, you've held a lot of belts and had a lot of great moments, but what would winning the UFC title mean to you?
It would be the crown to my career, which I say in all my interviews where they ask the same question. One more mountain to climb.
Would it be the biggest moment of your career, or just one more great moment?
Well, the biggest moment, UFC is by far the biggest organization. I mean, K1 was very large as well, worldwide. Strikeforce was big in the US, and then you had Dream, which was actually only big in Asia and Japan. UFC would be the biggest promotion and the most recognized world title, so it definitely would be the biggest achievement. But I would say that if I look at the year that I had the free belts, 2010, that was a very crazy year. A lot of things happened, a lot of things come towards you, and your character changes a little bit too. It was a very crazy year.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be a little bit more grounded and a little bit more. It's a little bit more calm.
That's awesome. Well, I guess so. It sounds like we might get breaking news someday this week, maybe. I guess I know you can't say anything right now, but I mean, what do you want fans to know? Is JDS the fight that you're hoping to get? I mean, what should people know about you as they're waiting to see the next stage of your career?
Well, listen, I'm hoping for JDS. I think that fight makes sense. So yeah, we're just gonna wait. What's up? I mean, if he's injured, of course, and he can't make it, then it's fine. But if he is not injured, I would love to fight him.
Awesome. Anything you want to plug? You got any documentaries coming out? You got any websites? Anything? What do people need to know about the Demolition Man?
The Demolition Man. Well, I don't know. I'm just working hard, just focusing on me, working hard, improving every day. Just focusing on me. When you don't hear me, I'm still focusing on me. When you hear me, I'm probably doing some other things, but also focusing on me.
So the Demolition Man, Alistair Overeem. You heard it from here. You heard it directly from him. He's going to use Demolition Man for me. Okay? Just hold him to that. Hit him on Twitter. Let him know. We're not using that Ream stuff anymore. Alistair has been a great sport all this week in Australia, and I think he's going to be back in Manila at the Manila show again next week. So maybe we'll catch up with him again out there and just see what's going on. It was funny. I mentioned the cooking episode and just how terrible he was at cutting onions, and I was kind of poking fun at him a little bit. And he basically challenged me to play video games. He said, "Listen, well, first of all, he said I looked like a gamer, which I understand. He was poking fun at me being fat, so that's kind of rude, but I get it. I told him, look, I'm not actually a gamer. I don't game very much. I'm fat because I drink a lot of beer. So at which point he kind of backed off a little bit, but that led to another story. It was funny. He said, when he was in the Philippines the week before, he did a huge appearance at a mall there, and one of the things they had planned for him was playing UFC Undisputed. And he said, listen, I'll be honest, I've only played it a handful of times. I'm not real good at it. But they had a tournament where these guys fought each other, and the winner got to fight Alistair Overeem in UFC Undisputed. So obviously these guys know what they're doing, and I guess they thought Alistair could play. But Alistair, being the competitor he is, he said they got him together, bring the winner of this tournament together, and they're ready to play. And right before they start, Alistair leans over to him and whispers under his breath, nobody else can hear. He's like, "You better let me win, or I'm going to kick your ass." And the guy let him win. The guy let him win. So Alistair knows how to use his hulking size to his advantage when he needs to. So anyway, it's been fun talking with Alistair this week, and again, hopefully we'll talk to him out in Manila next week. But just been in a great mood, so hopefully he gets a fight booked very soon. It sounds like he's expecting an announcement anytime. Let's get to our next guest, Jessica Eye. Jessica Evil Eye, a contender in the women's bantamweight division. Of course, wanted to get the fight with Ronda Rousey. Did not get the fight with Ronda Rousey. Betch Correia got the fight with Ronda Rousey instead. And Jessica talks to that a little bit. She addresses it pretty directly. She'll share you a little bit of behind-the-scenes talk, a little bit of things that went down with her, Ronda, and Dana White, and how things came to be. At least from her point of view. And listen, I hadn't spent a lot of time talking to Jessica Eye before. She hadn't been featured in a ton of media events that I had been at. But she has made a fan. She is a lot of fun to talk to, and I think you'll see that very. If you know her, then obviously you know already, because I think it's very evident from the moment you first hear her talk. I know cold coffee will be happy with Jessica Eye as a fellow Ohioan. I guess that's what you are, from Ohio, an Ohioan. And just a staunch supporter of Cleveland sports, man. She's a big Browns fan. She's anybody to listen to. She's been talking NBA playoffs with the Cavs. So a big sports fan, but just very well spoken and very direct in what she does. And of course, she's here as a guest fighter, but also to stand in support of Stipe Miocic, which man, I didn't realize how back their history together went. I mean, I knew they trained together, but I didn't realize how deep that bond ran, which is going on 10 years now. So anyway, I think you'll enjoy hearing a little bit of Jessica's point of view on the women's division and on Ronda Rousey, and what's going on behind the scenes, and the Betch Correia fight, and what she thinks about Miesha Tate. And of course, she's got a big fight, and if Jessica wins that fight, man, she might be next. A lot of people saying that Miesha could earn another shot with Ronda with a win, but if Jessica wins, it might be her. So listen to Jessica Evil Eye give you her take on the women's division, and tell me if she doesn't make a fan out of you in the few minutes that we speak together. And of course, stay tuned. I know I keep teasing this epic story, but I think it's going to deliver. I don't think I'm overpromising. So here's Jessica Eye. Sitting down with Jessica Eye here in Adelaide, Australia. You're kind of just getting in, right? So
Yeah, technically I got in, I think, oh gosh, I don't even know what time it really was here, like 12 o'clock, something around there. But it's crazy time change. Like, it's Tuesday back in Ohio, but it's Wednesday here, and it's like halfway through the day.
It's kind of bizarre, right?
Yeah, and I left on Monday. So left on Monday, got here on Wednesday. So crazy.
What does it feel like to you? I mean, to be a guest fighter, in a country so far away. I mean, I would gotta think that's you gotta feel some respect that the UFC is showing you some love. I mean, you wanted to be here anyway, I'm sure.
Oh God, yeah. Stipe, my teammate, in the main event is, gosh, me and Stipe literally started a month apart of each other at Strong Style and have been there for almost 10 years now. So he's like a big brother to me. Like, the both of us to be here, and to me to get to come to Australia to work with the UFC. They want me representing them, and then to see my teammate kick butt. Like, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I literally had like an epiphany on my way over here, and I was like on my 14-hour flight that I was like, oh my God, like, people live their life, every day, just day to day, and don't realize like what kind of blessings they have. And I literally I'm fighting and working for the best fight organization in the world. I'm so blessed.
That is amazing. 10 years. I knew that you guys were teammates, but I had no idea you'd been together that long.
Yeah, I mean, I'm about to be 29, so on my 29th birthday, it'll be 10 years coming up here in July. I mean, we both literally started randomly. Like, I didn't know him. Our team was still developing. I mean, we had guys like Jeff Cox and Forrest Petts, who had fought in the UFC. I mean, they'd beat some good names, and it was just so nice to see our team like doing amazing things. And my coach. I mean, like, I think I'm more excited for my coach and the fact that like he is where he is now because like with us, because not only like are we successful, but our teams are successful, and that makes my coach richer, and that makes me happy.
That's awesome. Did you have, along the way, 10 years, you can't say you had UFC dreams because it didn't seem that long ago. Dana was going around saying, oh, women will never be in the UFC. So what was the goal?
My goodness, I remember whenever I did a grappling tournament. Well, first I went down to Strong Style I'd heard about fighting and I'd rented a Blockbuster. Remember you used to have to rent
Sure.
the UFCs? So we had rented one and stuff like that, and we're like, oh man, UFC is so cool. And someone was like, hey man, they do that UFC stuff around here. You should check it out. And I was like, all right, I'll check it out. And I was kind of a knucklehead myself, so I was like, I could maybe do this stuff. So anyways, I went and I checked it out, and I found our gym, and I found everything, and it literally has just led, every day for itself. It's just gotten bigger and bigger every single day. And then, look where we're at. We're in the UFC. I mean, I didn't think that there was ever going to be a UFC for women. I was in Bellator, and when Bellator got rid of their women's division, for me, I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to go up and, am I going to go to 35
Right.
or I could never go to 115. It literally would not happen. I'd have to shave my head and get rid of a leg. I'd never make 115. So I was like, what am I going to do? And I mean, it wasn't less than 24 hours of my release of Bellator. And they were like, you know what? The UFC's like, we want you. And no, like to say, I remember when Dana said that there was going to be no women. I remember going to my coach and saying, "Hey, I want to fight. I want to do this stuff. I think I could be the reason that there's women, women fighting." And he's like, "It's going to be hard. It's going to be one of the hardest things you've ever done." And I was fortunate to be in the NAAFS, then from the NAAFS to Bellator, and Bellator to the UFC. So I mean, I've been fighting for years. I think when people say like, "Oh, we just heard about Jess," like I'm going on 20 plus fights.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just because you only know my UFC fights doesn't mean that I haven't existed before.
That's bold. I mean, you thought that, hey, you could put the entire women's division on your back and be the reason that they were coming to the UFC.
I swear to you, I remember when Ronda fought in Strikeforce, and I was still with Bellator at this time, and I had tweeted out, I was like, man, I can't wait for women to be in the UFC. I want to be one of the first females in the UFC. Oh my God, Bellator flipped out on me. Like I almost got cut. They suspended me. They were mad at me. They were like, what are you saying UFC for? But those were my dreams, and I never lied about it. I always wanted to be in the UFC. I mean, Bellator was where I had to be at the time to get here. So
No doubt. Talk about your last fight. Obviously, I think that was kind of a star-making performance. Maybe, like you said, I mean, people are still learning about the division, still learning about the women's fighters, but I feel like that was the one where people really stood up and took notice.
you know what? I really do believe that the Leslie Smith, obviously, I mean, it wasn't because of the actual fight, because if you break down that fight, and this is no joke, I had thrown 304 punches, connecting with over 200 of them in 7 minutes. She had 98 of her 150. I was 20 for 20 on my leg kicks. She was like 4 for 4. I mean, there were so many of these other things that all people are seeing is the ear busting, and they're not actually seeing the true performance that I had put on. And that's okay. I mean, and that's the same way I feel about the Sarah Kaufman fight. Like, just because of the overturn, I mean, let's not take it away that no matter what, when you buy the UFC 166 DVD, they don't stop Just Guys fight and put a big old X through it and be like, no contest. Jessica did not, win against Sarah Kaufman. So, to me, I think that everyone saw who I was at Sarah Kaufman, lost a little bit of faith when I lost that crappy split decision, but then just remembered why I'm such a devastating striker in the women's division when this last fight happened.
What was that run like for you? I mean, the Kaufman no contest, the split decision. Embarrassing at all? Frustrating at all? What was it?
Oh, my God. Embarrassing? Humiliating? Let's see. I felt like my privacy had been tampered with. I felt like I had let everybody down around me. I let myself down, let my career down, let down the UFC, and by entrusting in me. Look, nobody in the UFC has had a harder road than me. I don't care what anybody says. I fought Sarah Kaufman, Alexis Davis, Leslie Smith. I'm gonna beat Miesha Tate, and I'm gonna fight Ronda Rousey, and I'm gonna get that title. And you look at everything that I've done, and you're gonna see like, wow, this girl has never had it easy. She didn't have easy fights in Bellator. She didn't have easy fights in her early parts of her career. Everybody that I've ever been put in front of, I've proven myself. And anytime that I have lost, I didn't go out there I didn't get thrown around. I didn't get beat up. I've lost one split decision in a submission in 20 plus fights. I'd like to say that's, pretty good. Like I'm not trying to sit there and, blow myself up, but at the same time, like I'm proud of myself, and I'm proud of where I'm at.
That's awesome. In February, you were in LA campaigning pretty hard for the Ronda Rousey fight.
Man, there's some things I can't really say, but let's just say I campaigned for that because there was a reason I was campaigning for that. I was in LA for a reason, and I was ready. If either girl got hurt, I was going to be ready at any point to step in on that fight. I mean, Dana and Sean Shelby, I've made it perfectly clear I deserve a chance. I mean, if we're going to go and do the whole numerical thing here, okay? We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who's next in line? Me. Before Betcha. And I know why, Betcha is getting the fight, and I understand it. It is what it is. I can't do nothing about it. I mean, I can only focus on fighting Misha now and just keep making my paychecks bigger and bigger every time.
So when you say you were training and ready, I mean, was that like in an official capacity, or like you were kind of the backup?
I was there and I was ready, and I'm always ready. I'm ready if the UFC calls me at any point. I mean, that's my job.
Yeah. So when you say you understand why Betch got the fight, I mean, I think if you go back and listen to interviews, and I mean, Ronda had been laying the groundwork for that fight, saying that she respected her as there was an opportunity to fight in Brazil, all these things. I mean, if you read between the lines, you could see that she was setting it up. So when you say you understand why she got the fight, you're saying that fight makes sense from a UFC point of view, or because I think a lot of people did go, what? Why is this the fight?
Well, I think that the average fan who doesn't know much about fighting, they go back and they look at the rankings. You know what I mean? Like maybe the new people that are looking at it and they go, wait a minute, why is number 5 getting passed by number 7 and so forth, so forth. So really that fight wouldn't be happening in Brazil if Anderson wouldn't have had his dilemma with the drug test. So that fight happened before, or, in between all that time. So I think that if everybody used their head a little bit, put the puzzle together, you would realize that the only reason why Betcha and Ronda are fighting is because Anderson is not.
That's right. Yeah.
And they need somebody.
They need a headliner.
Big draw. I mean, Betcha's big over there, and so is Ronda. Ronda's competed over there multiple times in the Olympics. I mean, and she's the champ. You know what I mean? Of course the champ's going to have clout no matter where they go.
But I'm assuming you're giving Betch no chance in the fight?
None. And I say that because maybe I'm a little biased when I say that, and nothing against her or her fight skill or her ability. The girl has never said one bad thing about me. She's never, and I'm not saying anything bad about her either. I know what I want, and I ideally see myself doing, so maybe that's why I look at it the way that I look at it. You know what I mean? Like, I want that fight. I mean, I didn't get in this sport to just be one of the top 5 fighters. I got in this sport to be a champion, and until I'm a champion, I'm just going to, push until I'm there.
That's awesome. Obviously, beating Miesha Tate would do a lot to help you get there. Talk about that matchup itself. It's not the fight you wanted. You wanted the title fight. But in the women's division, that's probably second best to a title fight, right?
Yeah. Listen, you know what? I probably am one of the most, easiest fighters to work with in that way. Like, I let everybody else do their job. My job is to fight. You want me to fight? I fight. If you want to put Miesha Tate in front of me before Ronda Rousey or whoever, you put them in front of me. That's my job. My job is to fight. And to me, it's like process of elimination. If I fight you once and I beat you, then on to the next one. So I know once I beat Miesha, I know where my place is. And I already do anyways. I think it'll just kind of solidify it just a little bit more.
She's kind of a polarizing figure. I mean, a lot of people respect her game. Other people say that she's, it's about looks and hype and more than fighting ability. What's your take? I mean, do you think she's a legitimate top contender, or do you think that she gets kind of, built up a little bit more because of the way she looks?
Well, we live in an impressionable world. So the better looking you are, the more opportunities, unfortunately, that go with you. That's fighting, any kind of athlete. We're talking business world or anything. So, maybe she gets a little bit more opportunities because she is very pretty and, she's very, she's in great shape. But at the same time, I do see her as a top contender, but at the same time, how you've been beat by other girls. You've been beat by girls that I have beat, and we've fought in similar people, and you say you can go to 25. I used to be a 25er, so, unless she puts her pants on both legs at the same time, just jumps into them, I don't see any different. I feel like I'm just as much of a contender.
How do you feel the fight plays out? I mean, is it basically just her wrestling against your striking?
You know what? I think it is so funny because everyone's like, oh, Miesha's got the best, wrestling, this, that, and the other. She took, Sarah McMahon down, and Sarah McMahon's a very good friend of mine. We trained previously to me coming to the UFC, and, we would train anytime that we can, now to help one another. We were messaging back and forth with the Tate fight before it actually even happened, which I still thought Sarah won. But that's, maybe I'm biased because it's my friend. But yet again, I see her actually, if she was smart she's not going to try to strike me, and she's not going to try to wrestle me. I mean, she's not going to win any way around. I think that most people haven't seen my wrestling. They haven't seen what I'm capable of. I think all they saw was the Alexis Davis fight, and I had a lot of things going on personally in my life, and I just kind of I flunked out. I literally flunked out in that fight. I hate it. I wish it was go away, because all people see is her laying on top of me in that second round, and they see her holding me down for 2 minutes, and it was almost like I was holding her on top of me because she wasn't stronger. I was like, I almost like panicked a little bit, but at the same time, like, there's no way that Misha goes into that fight winning at all. I don't see any way that she can beat me, and not because she's not good, but because I'm just better.
Easy enough. How do you see things playing out for you this year then? Is it you pick up the win there, assume Ronda gets the win as well? Do you think a title fight at the end of the year, maybe
Madison Square Garden, baby.
Yeah.
Me and Ronda Rousey. Come on now. Brunette versus blonde. Tough girl versus tougher girl. You know what I mean? I feel like it makes sense. Like, Ronda, whoever's holding the title at that moment is considered the best. So who's ever holding that title, be it Betcha or her, at the next time, like, I hope to goodness that it's me standing across from them.
That's awesome.
You know what?
Outside of fighting, I hear you going over Cleveland sports. I mean, you're an extreme Cleveland sports fanatic.
Did you see my shirt when I came? It said Cleveland till I die. Man, I love Cleveland. Cleveland sports, they support me. They love me. They treat me well. All the athletes, are really into my career. They're very much so into the MMA scene, and they're proud of me. They look at it like, oh my God, like, here's this little girl, like, doing this stuff, like, going out there beating people up. Like, we got to step up our game. And I'm so blessed that, the Cavs, they support me. The Browns, they support me. The Indians support me. So I love it. I mean, I feel like I could go to a different city and I would just be a normal fighter there. No one would notice me. But in Cleveland, man, they treat me like a queen, and I love it. I enjoy it, I guess. I enjoy that aspect of knowing, like, when I'm there, I'm important to them, and it matters. And just like, Johnny Manziel, Cleveland loves them. They love their Johnny football. And from a Midwest town, like, they really strive on their sports team, and they really, like, just want to look up to someone. So
right.
I like that, people look up to me.
What's your take on Johnny Manziel? Are you a Johnny football fan?
Listen, I'm all about the Browns doing better. I'm glad to see Johnny took steps to get himself in a better direction. He did a great job. I mean, we've seen other athletes go through, some really bad things before, but Johnny did everything that he was supposed to do, and I think we're going to see, a good Johnny this year. I think last year was a lot. I mean, you got to remember, when you're young like that, all that money being thrown at you, all that publicity, all that being thrown at you at one time, like, that's a lot. You know what I mean? That's a lot to accept. I mean, my God, if someone would have handed me $500,000 when I was 19, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? You know what I mean? It's just because you're not developed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like fighters and true athletes, the older you get in the sport, the more your value increases. Because you have that experience with you, and experience is priceless.
Yep. Last thing, Dana said that you said you'd beat somebody up if you didn't get the title shot. Did you beat anybody up?
So check this out. Me, Dana, and Rhonda all went to South by Southwest in Austin,
That's right.
Texas, and which was really awesome. I had a great experience with the both of them, and Rhonda was so cool. When she walked in, I just started teasing a little bit. I'm like, man, you look real beat up for 15 seconds worth of work. Like, and I'm like that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm cool. Like, I don't got to hate you to want to fight you. You're in my paycheck. Like, I don't care either way. So we had a really good, hour and a half that we were all together. We did the panel. The panel looked great. ESPN loved it. But at the end of it, that's when Dana was like, I got to talk to you. And I was like, what? What do you, I mean, like, what? Like, he's like, I got to talk to you in private. And I'm like, oh my God, like, that's never good when your boss is like, hey, I want to talk to you. I want to tell you something. The first thing he says to me, he goes, don't punch, or he goes, Pinky promised me. And I was like, what? He's like, don't punch me. And I literally, like, I guarantee you, he saw it in my face, like, my face dropped, and I was like, what? And he was like, so this is what's going on. Anderson, blah, 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 Ronda, Betcha, Brazil, yeah, you, Misha, before that. And I was like, dang it. And, like, I was, like, so frustrated. And the first thing I said to him was, I was like, it's because of my no contest. You know what I mean? That's what it is. It's because I look like I'm 1-1-1 in the UFC right now. And it's that no contest that's throwing me back, isn't it? And he's like, absolutely not, Jessica. You have all the tools to be a champion. You just got to go out there and win the fight. So if that's what it takes for me to set an example with Misha, I mean, It could be Misha. It could be any girl in the division right now. I know that the eyes are really on me. No pun intended. I know that everybody's looking right now, and I know this is the time. Last time it was a good chance to prove myself in Mexico on such a great card. This time, it's to like literally put the stamp on it and be like, Jessica is here, the evil's here, and it's my turn. You know, everyone gets a chance, and it's just mine.
That's awesome. Very well said. Any last thoughts, messages, anything you want to plug, anything you want people to know?
Oh man, thank you so much for having me on, and man, everybody in this sport has a purpose. I just know what mine is.
I told you that would be fun. That was fun, right? Jessica I? Yeah, I told you. You know, listen, Jessica has made a fan out of me. Big fight on the horizon, and I think it's cool to hear her share how it all came together, at least from her point of view, and kind of what's on the horizon for her as well. I mean, listen, she's not that far away from a title shot, so that could very well be in her future if things play out the way that she thinks they're going to play out. So she has made a fan out of me. I will always look forward to speaking with her in the future. Just again, her attitude, her spirit, how she answers things directly. Very, very cool. I'm a big Jessica I fan now. So, all right. Final guest, Mike Chiesa. I've been teasing this story, and I think it's worth it. But beyond that, you know, Mike and I just had a good conversation. I enjoyed talking to Mike. Known him since his time in The Ultimate Fighter. That's when I met him. Was fortunate enough that the UFC allowed me to talk to him while filming was going on, which is something they don't normally do. But, of course, what he went through with his father's passing, just as he was starting the show, you know, they decided to make an exception. And so that's kind of where I first met him. And, you know, we've kind of, you know, remained in conversation since. And I see him a lot. Again, he's happy being a guest fighter. And he's on the road a lot. He's almost on the road as much as me. So we end up seeing each other in a lot of random countries. But I think you'll just enjoy hearing Mike. He's got a great take on a lot of things. He's updating us about his life. He's breaking some news. I don't know if he's supposed to break news, but he's breaking some news as well. So stay tuned for that. And then, of course, stay tuned for this epic story, which is it's even better just to hear it coming from his point of view. So thanks for listening so far. And make sure you stay tuned for this. I think you're going to like it. We have made it to Adelaide, Australia. Not sure exactly what time it is, what day it is. I'm a little bit
I'm backwards.
A little bit messed up here, man. I am here with the one and only Mike Chiesa, though, who actually was on the last flight of my journey with me. I didn't even know that you were going to be there.
Yeah, we always cross paths at pretty random times, airports and little weird spots.
We do, man. I tell you, it's funny. You have, and we're kind of joking about it before we sat down here, but I mean, you're kind of Mr. International. You're Mr. Guest Fighter with the UFC. Is this something that you had to call and tell people, hey, put me on this list, or you were just getting called all the time? And how did it go?
I think it was kind of a combination of both things. Once they kind of sent me to a few events in different areas, I just kind of would kind of bug these people like, hey, I really like doing this stuff. And I cooperate, and I try to go above and beyond with my job. Like, if they're like, hey, be formal, wear a nice get-up, not too flashy, be good with the people, be on your best behavior. And it's kind of panned out that where every time I get done with a fight, I get to look forward to, within a month, traveling to an international event and partaking in fight week stuff. So, I mean, I'm not complaining. I love it.
I mean, let's be clear, not to dig too much into the private side of it, but these are not paid appearances for you guys. I mean, when you guys do this, I mean, yes, they provide some money for your per diem and stuff like that, but, I mean, you're volunteering your time to come out and do this stuff.
Yeah, and, I think there's some guys that maybe get a little money or, that's within their contracts with the UFC or whatever, but, obviously I'm not the type of guy that is too obsessed with how much money I'm making. I'm all about, making experiences and, things like a trip to Australia. You can't put a price tag on it, in my opinion. I like to travel, I like to see things. That's how I grew up. One half of my family's very international. Like, when we were in Mexico City, we're 5 minutes from my grandparents' apartment. So, and they're Italian, so it's kind of like this, this crazy, I've always lived this life. So I'm just super stoked that, whether I'm getting paid or not, I'm glad to be here in Australia.
No doubt.
You know, hanging out with you. So
For sure, man.
Yeah.
It is funny. We've crossed the paths in a lot of places all over this planet, man.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's funny. June. I don't know if you've thought much about it, but next month marks the 3-year anniversary of you winning the Ultimate Fighter, and you know, obviously, it's been an interesting path. It was an interesting path to start. Whirlwind for you. What's the whole? And thinking back 3 years, what's it been like for you?
It's just been crazy to think that, you know, every experience I have with the sport, whether I'm competing or I'm doing an appearance or anything that involves the UFC, you know, it's always exhilarating. But it's crazy to think that in almost 3 years, I've like settled in and like adjusted to the fact that, you know, this is my job. I'm a UFC employee. I get to fight for them. I get to be, you know, part of the company. I never would have imagined 3 years ago that I would settle into this spot. So I just, you know, every day is a blessing, and it's cool because some people didn't know this, but June 1st is my mom's birthday. And
Oh, wow.
that's the finale anniversary. So it's like June 1st is a great day for my family. So I'm just, every day, every experience, I'm just soaking it up.
It's very cool. Obviously,
Yeah.
it was tough. Was an emotional journey for you, and that's how you and I first met.
Yeah.
What's it been like in the time since then, man? Are you the pain healed, the wounds gone?
You know, yeah, there's certain struggles, you know, and they just kind of come at random times, you know, given, you know, you get those pivotal dates and stuff that have like a, you know, a significance. You know, yeah, those are there, but I mean, it's one of those things where at any point in our life we're going to have to experience it. So I try not to get down too hard on myself, like, you know, you don't want to lose your parents that young, but you're going to lose them anyways, and it's just like it doesn't, I don't mean to sound morbid, but
Right,
it's like
it's the truth.
at some point you just got to kind of like, I don't dwell on it as much as people think. Like, you saw me at my worst, like my
Yeah.
ultimate low, but I've come back. You know what I mean? There was a point where you couldn't bring it up to me or my mom without us having a struggle, or really anybody in my family. Whereas now, I can sit down and have an open conversation about my dad and not be dragged down by how things ended.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you get to a point, you just gotta celebrate their life, and that's what I'm doing now. He would be so proud of me, traveling, fighting. You know, my dream job. I had to beg him, like, please support me. Like, just don't go against this. I got to bail on college. I got to chase this thing down. I mean, it's awesome.
Did he have a deal with you? I mean, was there like, hey, you have X amount of time to figure this out, or was it, you know, you got to go back to school?
Not really. He just kind of gave me this ultimatum, like, okay, you're either going to go to college and work a part-time job, or you're going to work a full-time job and do this fighting thing. But there's no way. Those are your two ultimatums.
Right.
And it's one of those things where, you know, yeah, you break rules with your parents, but sometimes when they say something, you just got to take their advice. And I never, you know, I always got good advice from them. So obviously it was the right thing to do. I came out of tough. This is what's crazy is I worked at a beer company forever. That was my thing. I was like the blue collar, you know, going into the same grocery stores every day, making friends. Like, kind of made me feel like a modern
Like
day.
a sales rep or something?
No,
or
like I was
just
just like,
stocking?
just go stock beer, build
Wow.
displays and stuff, and it made me feel like the modern day Rocky. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
like, hey, how was your last fight? I heard you fought in some club and like 100 people there. So yeah, I beat him up, but he's actually a really tough guy. You know what I mean? And you know, but it was a cool experience, and I got to come into the UFC on no debt, and you don't hear that very often.
Wow.
So I came in you know, I quit my job, froze my bills. I came out of tough, you know, ahead. So it was great advice. He always supported me. He just wanted me to be happy, but it was like, at some point you got to put yourself in a parent's perspective.
Yeah.
How comfortable can you get with your kid wanting to be a cage fighter?
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a kid that turns 3 actually next week, and people ask me all the time, you know, do you want your son to be an MMA fighter? And I'm like, no. And it's so weird because like my entire life is built around the sport. I love nothing more than sitting down and talking with you guys and getting to know your stories and where you came from. But at the end of the day, I don't really want to see my kid get punched in the face.
Nobody does. I mean, that's just, even, you know, I'm not a parent. You know, that's another thing that makes being here in Australia easier is I don't have a family. I don't got a wife. You know, I'm just kind of like lone wolf status. You know, all I'm chasing is glory. I don't got anybody to support but myself. But I just put myself in that position. Like, I would want my kid to golf.
Yeah. I
Like,
say the same thing. Golf or baseball?
yeah, no football, no skateboarding, no snowboarding, none of the stuff I like to do. But you can play tennis, you can play golf. You know.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You have had a success story. You know, you and I were talking in the taxi on the way over, and we talked before.
Yeah.
You still believe in the Ultimate Fighter, right? Because there's a lot of people that are saying, "Ah, man, the show's tired. It's done." But you still believe in it. So why do you still believe in it?
Because there's no way to find out. Look, there's a lot of great fighters out there. There's fighters not in the UFC that are out there right now that could get up there and compete in the top 10. I truly believe that. I truly believe that for every great fighter we know of, there's somebody greater we don't know about. You know what I mean? The world's a big place, and there's a lot of tough guys out there. But I think that, some seasons, yeah, you don't see as much talent. But I like to take pride in being in one of the better seasons of Tough, where you look at the cast of Tough 15. Just off the top of my head, we got James Vick, made the semis. He's fighting on the card. You got Vince Pichel, Sam Cecilia, me, Ally Quinta, who's in the top 15, Miles Jury, who's in the top 10. I mean, that's 7 out of 16 right there. Plus, John Tuck made it in. He lost his prelim fight.
That's right.
Akbar Ariola, Drew
That's right.
Dober, Darren Cruikshanks. I mean, we could keep going.
It's amazing.
Rifling off names. So before people count out Tough, look back at some of these rosters, and you're like, holy crap, there really is like 10, 12 guys from that season that are on here now.
Yeah.
You can't say many bad things. You got to try things. You got to try new things to find out where the best fighters are at. And sometimes it's a bust, and sometimes it's like suited blackjack, baby. You get the bonus.
No doubt. The other thing too we always hear about is that it helps you guys like get used to being in front of a camera, like kind of media training, that sort of thing, a little bit of savvy. Do you feel that that's true too? Do you feel like there were some benefits other than just getting a UFC deal?
Yeah, because it gives us a chance to get our name out there, to get our names in a household environment where there's families that sit down and watch this show. Whether the ratings are good or they're bad, there's ratings. There's people watching, and I guarantee you almost half of them are going to be families. So you're getting your name in the household where it's easy to be like, you get spotted in public. There may be better guys on the card, but the world knows who you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? It gives you a chance to get some spotlight before, whereas other guys, it's like you got to make your way up the Facebook prelims to even get on Fox Sports and win 4 in a row before anybody knows who you are. So It's kind of a fast track, but I think that when you weigh it all out, I think it weighs out even.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's exactly the reason you said. I think it still makes sense. I get it. Some people are tired of it, but I think it still makes a lot of sense. Now, you mentioned some guys that are in the top 15, the top 10. I know right before we jumped on here, you were getting a little ribbon that you weren't there. What do you think about what you've accomplished? I mean, I heard you kind of talking about it when you think back to a couple little minor changes here and there. So what do you feel about your UFC run? Do you feel like you've done everything you can? Are there things that you would change? What do you think about it all?
Obviously I'm a very competitive person. I get down on myself. I look at, I'm 5-2 in the UFC right now. I feel like I should be 7-0. I don't gripe about the Masvidal loss as much because, I mean, for a first loss of my career, I mean, what people don't know, I lost my second amateur fight ever in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
I did not lose until that Masvidal fight.
Wow.
We're talking 23 fights where I'm like, and even when I lost, I still gave him hell.
Right.
It's not like I went out there and laid an egg. I mean, I put it on the guy worse than anybody has in the UFC. I mean, that first round, damn near a 10-8 round.
Yep.
So, losing 1 second, it's like what Joe Silva told me. The lesson you learned that fight, you learned the best way possible, because most of the time guys learn that lesson and they walk out of there super busted up.
Right.
I walked out with a couple bruises and a broken heart. But obviously the one that sticks out is the Lozon fight. It's like I said to you, it's gonna be my Uncle Rico moment for the rest of my life. It's always gonna be that. If coach would have put me in fourth quarter, if ref never would have stopped my fight because of the cut, he would have been doomed. And bless Joe's heart, I was mad at him for about a week. But,
Right.
I have not a bad thing in the world I could say about him.
Yep.
But I'd love a chance to beat him up again. I just don't think it makes sense anymore.
No?
I mean,
Too much time or just?
no, I think that I'd welcome a rematch, obviously. I mean, I'm not going to turn any fight down. I never have. I think Joe's to the point now where it's about legacy fights.
True.
Where if
Sure.
Joe gets on a win streak and we meet again, awesome. But I think that now it's like this Gomi fight. This is a phenomenal fight. They're both still world class, top ranked guys, But I think that there's more novelty fights out there for him, better than a fight with me. But if it happens again, I'll jump on it and I'll finish what I started. I mean, I'm a very confident guy. I'll get out there and get the job done. I think I would have beat him the way Al did. I think that I would have wore on him and TKO'd him in the second. And,
Right.
I've watched the fight 100 million times, and every single time it's like that's what was happening.
That was. I know that was a bitter moment for you.
Yeah, that was tough. If I was laying an egg and I was getting spanked, how mad am I going to get? But it's like, well, He was amidst a 10-piece combination when they were like, oh, here, let's better check the cut real quick. The guy that's winning's cut. We better stop the fight.
Well, you fought in April. You picked up a win. So normally it would be summertime probably. We'd be back in action. But, I mean, do you mind sharing? You're going to take the summer off, right? Do you mind sharing kind of what's going on?
No, not at all. I'm more than happy to share what's going on. Big moment in my life for me. I bought a house. Not just any house. It's a house that's, bank foreclosed. So, I obviously had to save up some money and put some time into it. And I signed on the house like a day before I left for the Clark fight. So ever since I got home, it's been like really having to crack the whip, whether I'm tearing out a kitchen or I'm just having to run around town and pick out light fixtures. Either
Right.
way, it's like this is really not the time for me to jump in and try to balance the camp on top of, I'm living in my apartment still. I'm in the process of doing as much as I can to finish this house. I mean, it's a house on 5 acres with a pool with
Wow.
a lot of work that needs to be done. So the best thing I can do right now, and I got offered a fight. I got offered Ross Pearson in July. Love the matchup. Ross is a good guy. We would have went out there and
Would have been a show.
it would have been a phenomenal fight. It's something that excites me to get out there and compete against a guy like Ross, but it just just wasn't the right time. I
Yeah.
got to get this house done. This isn't a me moment. It's not about now. It's about the future. This is where I'm going to spend the better part of the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So my energy needs to be focused on that. I think I'm predicting, I'm still in the gym. Sam and Julie both have fights coming
Right.
up. I don't know if they've released anything, so that's about all I can say. But I'll still be in the gym to help them, but my energy is going to be on my home, getting that finished, and I think that I'll be able to hit the gym probably full-time again mid-June.
Mid-June. So
Yeah.
when would you want to, like, September or around that? Or
I know. I don't know. I think August, September sounds about right.
Yeah.
I've missed the last couple fight weeks. And, I'd like to do the International Fight Week and not have something lingering over my head. But
Right.
ultimately, I got to take some time to sharpen up a few things. I think that I lose a lot of credit. You know what I mean? I got guys on Tough that, Tough's just a tournament. You can't point everything back to Tough like this guy did better than so and so. It's a tournament. I can't promise that if we did that thing 100 times over, I'd come out the winner every time. It's just like wrestling.
Sure.
So, but me being a proud guy, I'm like, I look at those 2 losses where I lost to me by such a slight, stupid margin. I should be 7-0 ahead of the guys that I beat or did better than.
Right.
So, I gotta make a statement. So it's best for me to just focus on the house, get it out of the way, get my life settled back in there, and then just like get back to business. Business that got me this beautiful piece of land. I got to go out and beat some people up.
That's awesome. Still in the same area?
Yeah, just north of Spokane. So I'm about 20 minutes out of town, but I'm ready for like a little bit of seclusion. The idea to buy a house on property kind of came from Donald Cerrone. Like I've always kind of like Donald's always been a guy that stood out to me. Like, I grew up on a ranch a little bit. A lot of people don't know that. I'm not a cowboy,
Right.
but I'm familiar with his lifestyle. I like to ride motorcycles and snowboard and wakeboard and do all this crazy stuff. And like now that I'm like, well, I saved up enough money, I could actually maybe start my own BMF ranch. So right now, as a joke, we've been calling it the MC Dojo, Mike Chiesa Dojo. So just watch out when I hit these countdown shows here in a couple of years. We'll be at the MC Dojo.
That's nice. So are you gonna put a gym out there and do
Yeah, absolutely. I got a big oversized garage, so also I got to put in there is my little Volkswagen and my bike. So I got a lot of space to put up some mats. But I do predict, once I get through this next fight and stack my chips up some more, I will build a full-size gym. Very similar to Donald Cerrone's. I like what he does. I'm like, he's doing things right. So maybe if I try to draw inspiration from Cowboy, I'll be able to set myself up the way he's done for himself.
Not a bad place. Not a bad guy to model yourself
No.
after.
Not at all. And you also look, he does the same thing. He does a lot of events, travels a lot, does a lot of things to get his name out and be a good representative for the UFC and all the brands that he represents.
Nice.
Company I used to work for, Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch.
You wouldn't mind him giving you a call these days, huh?
Give me a call. I'll be ready.
Well, while we're here, let's pick your brain a little bit. I know that we're just kind of getting settled into Australia, but main event, big heavyweight hitters this weekend. Mark Hunt, Steve Miocic. Give me your thoughts. Have you had a chance to break that one down in your mind? How do you think it plays out?
This is to a lot of people, this is an easy fight to break down. You got Stipe Miocic, younger, not as banged up, very athletic guy. I mean, he was a Division I athlete in 2 sports. Spent extensive time training with Mirko Krokop, who knows Mark Hunt's game all too well. But for me, it's not as much of a gimme because Mark Hunt's just that guy where if he walks in that octagon, the cage door closes behind him. He, out of anybody in the UFC, has the best chance to knock somebody out, no matter whether he's the favorite or the underdog. But I gotta use my intelligence more than I am this. I see Stipe walking away with the win. I don't see him finishing, but I see him, moving around a lot, evading Mark's big left hand, and I think he'll get a unanimous decision for sure.
I think that's a fair way to pick it. That's kind of the way I see it breaking down as well.
Yeah, it's just tough to say because it's Mark, dude. You know
right.
what I mean, no disrespect to either of the guys, but I've always been a Hunt fan for who he is and how many combat sports he's competed in and done all this crazy stuff. But yeah, I think that's how the fight's gonna unfold.
I agree. Get your take on one kind of hot button topic. Last week the Floyd Mayweather fight was a huge fight. People made a lot of the things that have happened to him outside of the cage, or out of the ring, I should say.
Yeah.
John Jones, of course, having his out of the cage issues. Mm-hmm. What do you think? I mean, do extracurricular activities, things that happen in your personal life, should that matter to people as fans? I mean, if you just want to watch a guy fight, does it matter what he does outside of the cage, or do we need to pay attention to that kind of stuff?
I just think it depends. The thing that's different between John and Floyd is Floyd owns Mayweather Promotions. You know what I mean? That is his company. So, who's going to punish Floyd when he does something stupid? Floyd. He's probably going to go buy himself something. I mean, that's it. Like, cool, I got bailed out of jail for hitting my wife. I'm going to go buy a brand new Bugatti. Like, must be hard. But for John, you know what? This is a job. And I remember my time when I worked for Budweiser. There's a code of conduct, okay? Granted, you work for a beer company, you don't drive drunk.
Right.
You don't do this. You don't represent the company in that way. You don't do this when you're out in the field. Like, just because we're individual athletes doesn't mean we don't need to live up to a certain code of conduct. Look, let's just be honest. John's made a couple $1 million. You should have bought a cap.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you know what? We shouldn't be interested in your personal life. Your personal life is your personal life. But until you do something that involves the police and the public records, like, it doesn't matter if it's anybody's business or not. That's just that's how these things come through. That's how we hear about when guys get in trouble. It's a public record, and somebody goes, Chris Lieben? I know Chris. Oh, that's the Ultimate Fighter guy. Boom.
Yep.
And John Jones, in his case, it's like, dude, you were in Albuquerque.
Yeah, sound like an off-duty officer who was a UFC fan was the one that saw him and kind of started, ID'd him, and I guess maybe got the ball rolling.
I feel like John's been dealt a really hard last couple hands with the drug test, being out of competition, and yes, it was a breach of privacy because they shouldn't have been testing for that. They should have been testing for PEDs and stuff like that. But either way, it's like it was just meant to be.
Yeah.
I think that there's maybe certain things that people don't understand. Even just for myself, from my own little experiences, just from winning the Ultimate Fighter, I had a little 3-month period where I'm like, got to kind of get my feet on the ground. I'm kind of losing sight of things. And John, I mean, people should give him a break. He's had 8 title defenses at some of the best guys in the world, former world champions. This all started when he was 23. Things like this are destined to happen really to anybody.
Yeah, I agree. I said, I mean, if I was that young and that rich and made a living out of beating the crap out of former UFC champions, I'd probably be a little cocky too.
Well, the thing is we don't see it. John's so usually this happens when guys lose. When you take a phenomenal guy, like theoretically, let's just say Khabib Nurmagomedov's right. Anthony Pettis partied too much. Well, if he was partying too much, if that was the case, which I'm not saying it was, I don't know Anthony's personal life,
right.
But let's just say that's true. Well, he lost. So he's going to learn his lesson, and he's going to change his personal life, and he's going to come back better. Whereas John, it's like John wasn't losing any fights.
Right.
So this was the only way for him to get certain things in his personal life straightened out. So it's sad to see it, but it's just what happens.
If it works out, it could be a great moment in
I
his
think
career.
he'll be back. I don't think I know Malky released his interview with Ariel recently saying how John, there's a good chance John could be gone. He's a competitor. I mean, he loves this sport through and through. If things are just, I don't know him. I don't know what's going on in his personal life, but it's something. And I think that once he gets things figured out, he'll be back. And he's just going to get back to John.
Yep, I agree.
Beat
Well,
people
maybe not the best segue ever, but I got to ask, has it been long enough that you can tell the Mike Chiappetta story to the world?
Yeah, you know what? I will tell it. This is my hangover moment. So, first of all, anybody that I'm a professional guy. You know what I mean? Like, everybody has fun. Everybody likes to have beers on these trips and stuff. It's just like it's kind of normal protocol. It's whatever. So, rewind time. It's November 7th, 2013. I just woke up on 5 hours of sleep, might I add, after my Colt Smith fight.
Right.
Got a bonus. Party with Bermudez that night. He's a wild man. You know what I mean? We tore up Nashville, did the whole victory dance. I got like 5 hours of sleep, and I had to wake up and pack and get ready to go to Brazil for Sam's fight on November 9th. So we pack our stuff on like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, take off to the airport, get there, sit up, do our thing. We travel, maybe get a little bit of plane sleep, not much. I mean,
And that's not good sleep.
Plane sleep doesn't count. I mean,
No.
whether you crash for 8 hours or not, I mean, sleeping on a plane does not credit anything.
No.
So I think by the time we hit the big flight, I got maybe like 3 hours or something like that. We land in Brazil, and it's daytime, weigh-ins. So we go straight to the hotel, and I'm like stripping my clothes off that I've rode in the plane to jump in the steam room with Sam. Like, he's like 2 pounds to go. He's so jacked to see us. It was kind of like a surprise when we were going to show up. So I'm in the steam room with him. I'm helping him cut weight. No time to rest. We're in the shuffle. So we get to weigh-ins. We do the stage, face off. We go to dinner, and by that, I'm like, man, it's starting to wear on me. It's like 10 o'clock. I've been up for like 26 hours or something like that, something crazy. And then all of a sudden, Cristiano Marcelo, former tough castmate, the godfather of his town in Brazil.
Sure.
He's the man. He's like, hey, a few of us, we're going to go out to like a restaurant, not a club. We're going to go to a restaurant and have a couple drinks. And I'm like, I'm pretty tired. And Sam and my coach, it was my first time to Brazil.
Right.
They'd been there. They're like, no, you got to go, dude. You can sleep tonight. You got to go out and have fun. Go check out Brazil. And I'm like, all right, I'll go. So one thing led to another. I have a couple drinks, and Cristiano's like, so there's not very many people there that speak English, so I immediately start to get kind of uncomfortable.
Right.
I don't have my hands. I got a cast on my hand.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't even have my
Forgot about
hands.
that.
I don't even have my hands to try to talk with. I'm like, I'm screwed. I'm one wing down in front of a bunch of people that don't speak English. Like, so a few of his buddies actually turned out to be very sharp English speakers. One of them was like his strength conditioning guy, and the other guy was like a lawyer. So I just like buddied up with them. End of the night roll, or it's like 12 o'clock. No, less than that. It was like 10, or I don't remember. After a few hours, Cristiano's like, I'm going to go back to the hotel. Do you want to go with? And I'm like, yeah, I'll go. And his buddy's like, no, you got to come out with us. You got to come out. And I'm already drunk by then, so I'm like, screw it, I'll go. You know what I mean? Like,
You were this close to making the right
it's like,
choice.
yeah, I was so close, but I'm like, they use the same thing. Come on, you never come to Brazil. We'll take care of you. So I'm like, screw it, we'll go. We end up at a club, like a club. Like,
Right.
it's Brazil. Everybody's there. I saw all the guys that were there for Fight Week. Eric Silva, Nogueira, up in the VIP. We go up there, and it's like, it was a really fun experience.
Sure.
For one, because it's like all these badass dudes, all these Brazilian guys I've looked up to. I'm fresh off a fight from the day before, getting a bunch of congratulations, a few too many drinks, and the last thing I remember is I was walking out of the ladies' room. Because for some reason, I don't know how it was worded on the door or something. Maybe it was like men's rooms usually on the left or something. I don't know. I kept going in the women's room to pee, and like I remember walking out of there laughing because they like said something, and I saw Big Nog, and I was like, hey, will somebody take a picture of us? And I took a picture with him. Next thing I know, I wake up, and I'm in a hotel room, and I like vomited all over the wall. Everywhere. And I'm like, wake up, and I'm like, what the? And there's this guy waking me up, and so I jump out of bed, and I'm like, how the fuck did I get here? Who the fuck are you? Like, I'm flipping out, like getting in this dude's face, and I'm like, I don't remember. I just remember I'm like, who the fuck are you? Where am I? Like, got a little. It was like shocking. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I just took. Like, I woke up and was like, whoa. You know what I mean? Like, totally bugged out. So end up walking out of the room. I don't do anything to the guy. I'm all talk. And so I like fucking walk out, and I'm like, oh, I'm in my hotel. So I just go up to my room. I strip my clothes off, throw them away, and went to sleep. And like the next day, that was fight day when I woke up. And I told Rick and Sam what happened. I'm like, dude, I'm scared. Because I'm not like look, I love to have a good time, but I am not the guy.
Yeah.
I've never had a criminal charge or anything. Like, I don't get in trouble. You know what I mean? For the most part, yeah, I can get wild, but I really don't overdo it. So I'm like telling him what happened. I'm like, dude, I'm scared. Like, I really puked all over this guy's room, and I like got in his face. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how I got in there. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm like tiptoeing around all the next day. Every time I see somebody, I'm like, hey, what's up? You know, trying to test the waters to see if they say anything. And we see Cristiano, and he's like, I'm like, hey, man, you know, how'd everything go last night? He's like, oh, my friends love you. They said they had so much fun. And I'm like, okay, that's a good sign. Like, I'm worried I did something stupid in there. Like, I don't know what happened. You know what I mean? So then I see his buddies, and they're, like, telling me all this crazy shit I did. And they said that, like, they brought me up in the DJ booth, and I had, like, a bottle of booze. I guess I was just, like, out there, dude. Out there, like, going just completely, like, out of character. Just so bad. Not one of my prouder moments, but, yeah. So just went super hard that night. And so then we get to the event. Sam fights. Knocks Pepe out.
Right.
First round. Smokes him. And that dude's doing good right now.
Yeah, he is.
So we're riding the bus back, and Sam's all stoked. He's like, yeah, we're going to go out tonight. And I'm like, duh, you guys are on your own. And all of a sudden, Leister Bowling leans his head out and goes, did you have a rough night last night? I was like, yeah, maybe. And he's like, I knew it was you. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, dude, he's like, somebody put out a tweet about some fighter that got too drunk and was in his hotel room. I'm like, shut up, dude. Like, whatever, you know, you're just messing with me. Pulls it up. It's Mike Geppetto. He used to work for MMA Fighting. And he posted a tweet that was like, I don't have it in my phone, but it almost went exactly like, so I come home, you know, early morning in Brazil, open my door to my hotel room to see a UFC fighter laying on my bed with puke everywhere. And then made like a side note, like, no, there was no forced entry. Like, this guy just, like, I didn't kick the door in, you know. I just woke up there. So I'm like, oh, my God, dude, I'm so dead. Like, at that point, I'm thinking I'm in deep trouble. Like, I think most people would kind of understand the situation. Like, I didn't just go out and drink. I was only up for 30 hours, traveled halfway across the world, and just probably wasn't the best idea to begin with.
And I guess what happened, the reason you got there is you lost your hotel key, right? And you went to go tell the front desk, and they didn't speak a lot of English, so you start spelling your last name.
Yeah, and they just gave me, because his last name starts with CHI, so they just, like, and it was Cristiano's buddies helping me out, too. And that, I mean, who knows how much of that even benefited at all. They're just like, the room was never in my name. It was in my coach's name. I never had a room.
Oh, wow.
So they're just like, here's this card. And they just, like, walked me up there. I laid down the bed and puked, and that's it. And it's just like, I owe that guy steak dinner, but I don't know if he'll ever forgive me. Like, that was just a bad deal. I mean, everybody.
It's a funny story.
It is a funny story.
And in fairness, Mike Chiappetta had been out with me that night until about 8 o'clock in the morning, which is why I didn't find you till then.
Oh, dude, yeah, it was so bad. Like, it was a big chunk of time I missed. That was like I was feeling that one for a couple of days.
I remember seeing you. I'll never forget that night of the fights. You were in there before the fight started. You were warming up with Sam, and you were kind of leaning on the cage or whatever, and I was like, you feeling all right? You're like, you heard, didn't you?
Like, oh, dude, yeah, that was so bad. I don't regret it.
It's a great story.
You know what? The thing is, if everything that happened up to that point, like the traveling and no sleep, it never would have happened.
Right.
It was just one of those things where I just.
It's a funny moment in history.
And I still found, and the fucked up thing is, so where was I in November? November was Brazil. No. Where was I? I was at some fight, and I saw Isabella. She's like the coordinator down in Brazil.
Mexico City,
yeah,
maybe? She came up to Mexico to help because her boyfriend,
Yep.
fiance, works for the company. And, yeah, he was there.
Yeah, so I saw Isabella in Mexico when I was there for Fight Week. And I found out more stuff I didn't know a year later about that night. About her. Like, they were like, called her, like, you need to come get Mike. Because the club closed and he wants to keep going. And everyone's like, no, we're going to go pass out. And I'm like, no, we're going out somewhere. So she had to come corral me and get me in control.
Everybody gets one of those every now and then, right?
Oh, dude, yeah. You hear about Al raging on hotel rooms. You hear about me just whatever. Hey, work hard. play hard.
Got to play hard a
Gotta
little
play
bit.
hard every once in a while.
That's awesome,
No
man.
one's-
Well, I'm glad you could share that story. It's funny because I've known about it for a long time, but I never really wanted to give all the details because
Yeah,
I was
I
like,
don't
you know
care.
what? I'll let Mike tell that when the time is right.
At the time, I was just more worried about like getting in trouble. I'm
Right.
like, I coach high school wrestling. I gotta put out a good image regardless. I gotta be a role model for these kids. But that is one of those things where it's like, sooner or later that one's gonna come out. I gotta tell people about it because it was just like the most lethal combination of I'm on the submission of the night, post fight victory, plus minus 26 hours of sleep, multiplied by vodka Red Bulls equals
that.
yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Hangover in Brazil.
Well, I guess we're not going to get to see you this summer. So you said you're going to come out to International Fight Week, though, and just
Yeah.
kind of hang out. Do you have any appearances, or you just kind of want to?
I'm gonna set some stuff up now. Obviously, I'm setting myself a good timeline that makes sense as far as getting the house done, getting in the gym. But I know how I can be. I can spend a week or two training and be right back in tune. I'm a pretty active guy, so I mean, I've always thought about jumping on a short notice fight if it made sense. But yeah, I think most people can plan on August or September. I'm not in the rush yet. You know what I mean? I'm still 27. I don't think when you're young is the best time to crank out fights all the time. I want 3 fights this year, but I think that, look at what Robbie Lawler's done. You gotta take what he does into consideration, and so I think I'm setting myself a good timeline where I'm not banging myself up, but preparing right, doing things right. I gotta start making big moves now. I'm 5-2, won 3 out of my last 4. I think it's time to, up the ante a little bit.
Perfect. Any names that make sense, or you gotta wait and see how things shake out over the next couple
I
months?
gotta wait and see how things shake out for sure. Like I said, I like the Ross fight, but it's I think I want something different. Maybe him and I can meet later on down the road or something. Maybe at the end of the year or whatever. I'm open to fighting anybody really. Me and Tony Ferguson, I've always thought that'd be a fun fight. He's got a big frame, wild dude, super tough.
I like that.
Beyond tough, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
that's a really tough matchup for me. But
Yeah. He's got some steam
he's
right
got
now
some
too.
steam. I think that I've got some steam. I can get overlooked a lot, but I think that people behind the scenes know that I'm a guy that I can keep up with the best guys in the world. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you've never seen me go out and get handled.
Right.
What other guy in the lightweight division has had 2 fights where each fight he's gotten 10-8 rounds, 2 10-8 rounds?
Yep.
I mean, if I don't finish, I dominate. So, I mean, I think that it's time to just step up in competition. Period.
I agree. All right, brother. Well, I appreciate the time, man. Any other thoughts, messages, things you want to plug, anything you want to get out there?
Not really, man. Just want to thank the UFC and Harley Davidson. And even though I'm not fighting this summer, my teammates are. Elizabeth Phillips, she'll have something coming up at some point. You heard it from me. I don't care if I get in trouble. Juliana's going to fight Liz Carmouche. I'll let them say when the date is. Sam's going to finally fight Doho Choi in San Diego. I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying that, but I had to spice things up.
Sources indicated.
Yeah, so you know what? I'm not fighting, but my team's on the hunt this summer, and I think we're going to rattle off some big wins, and I'll be there cage side as always, helping my teammates out. So while I'm not there, everybody else get out there and support my teammates, Sam Cecilia, Juliana Pena, and Elizabeth Phillips.
Perfect. Well done, man.
Thank you.